to sound too harsh or too rude or too mean, like, I just can't root for ineptitude, incompetence. It irks me. I can't get behind it. I can't support it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Where has your support been throughout this whole entire process? Has it wavered? Has it moved? Are you a pro player? Are you pro owner? Because at this point, you guys know I'm very pro owner, but when it comes to the players, I'm just now, right? It's less than care. You care, you don't care, and then you just.
That frustration you just heard, that's not coming from some casual fan or a random commentator. That's genuine exhaustion from someone who began this season supporting the players, fully prepared to back their fight for better conditions, and now, complete apathy. That shift didn't occur overnight. It unfolded through a systematic series of self-inflicted wounds that transformed potential allies into indifferent observers. And the architect behind this disaster has a name: Terry Carmichael Jackson, Executive Director of the WNBA Players Association. Here's what makes this so significant. In the span of just 10 days during February 2025, the supposedly unified front of WNBA players completely fractured. 3 separate incidents exposed deep dysfunction within the union. February 24th, a tense, players-only meeting where disagreements boiled over. February 25th, a group of player agents sent a letter to Jackson, expressing serious concerns. Then March 4th, the big one. Kelsey Plum and Breanna Stewart, the union's own vice presidents, sent a 3-page letter to Jackson, detailing what they called serious concerns about how the PA is handling current negotiations. 3 cracks in the foundation in 10 days. That's not a unified front. That's a crumbling structure.
About the split amongst members. She says, I quote, "The one thing I said to the players is they have one tool, and their tool is to outweight you." Now, before we get into the article, I want to give a shout out to Howard Megdal and his co-host. I don't know your name. I'm sorry. They got hold of this survey, or pieces of this survey. Here we go. WNBPA survey. Question 1A. Would you accept the league's proposal of 50% of net revenue, which is less than 15% of gross revenue?
Now look at that survey. Really look at it. This is how the WNBA Players Association collected feedback from their members during the most critical negotiation in league history. Question 1 asks if players would accept 15% of gross revenue. Then, question 3 asks what minimum percentage they'd accept, offering options of 18, 20, 22, or 25%. But here's the problem. There's no context provided about what those percentages actually mean in dollar terms. No breakdown explaining how it affects individual salaries. No comparison to what other leagues secured at similar stages of development. Howard Megdal got his hands on the survey, and when you read through it, the amateurish nature becomes impossible to ignore. This isn't how professional sports unions operate during high-stakes negotiations. The NBA Players Association doesn't send out multiple-choice surveys with vague options during collective bargaining. They conduct detailed briefings, provide comprehensive financial modeling, and ensure every member understands exactly what they're voting on. But the WNBA players got a Google form.
Additional wins are needed. Please click submit below. This is how we're going about getting feedback. This is how you're collecting player feedback. Now, I understand surveys are commonplace or not out of the realm of abnormality, but this particular one, I need to see the NBA surveys, the MLB's types of surveys, the NFL types of surveys, because this seems a little bit discombobulated. Jumbo.
Andy Costabile sat down with Terry Carmichael Jackson at the union headquarters in New York, and Jackson's response to the growing crisis reveals everything wrong with the current leadership. When asked directly about the letter from Plum and Stewart, Jackson said, "I think you're hearing that there is a discomfort with what's being played out. I don't know that there is a discomfort in what we are doing." Read that again. Discomfort with what's being played out. versus discomfort in what we are doing. She's separating the union's actions from the consequences of those actions. She's creating a distinction that simply doesn't exist. When your own vice presidents write a 3-page letter expressing serious concerns about your handling of negotiations, that's not discomfort with external factors. That's discomfort with your leadership, but it gets worse. Jackson's explanation for the division among players: I hear the emotions and the range of them as a result of the league putting pressure on the players, the league dragging this out. She's blaming the owners. She's blaming the league. She's pointing fingers everywhere except at her own decision-making.
All over the place. Not the best way to actually collect data from your players to see what they actually want. Just my opinion. Let's get right into the article, shall we? Annie Costable. I went to interview WNBA headquarters to interview Terry Carmichael Jackson. WNBA union director blames player rupture on the league. Now, something that's a common theme within the WNBA, within the players of the WNBA, the referees of the WNBA, mainly the players of the WNBA, because that's what we're talking about, is the lack of accountability. The lack of taking ownership of things. And what you'll see through here is that Terry Carmichael Jackson takes zero ownership, doesn't recognize that the building is currently on fire.
Let's talk about that 6-week silence, because this is where Jackson's narrative completely falls apart. The Players Association sent a proposal to the league in December 2024. The league rejected it. Then, in early January, the players sent another proposal, and according to multiple reports, that second proposal was nearly identical to the first one. They changed some wording, adjusted a few minor points, but the fundamental financial ask remained the same. The league looked at it and said, "We already responded to this. We're not going to waste time responding to the same proposal twice." And they didn't. For 6 weeks, there was silence, but that silence wasn't the league stalling. That was the league waiting for the players to do their job and come back with an actual new proposal. During those 6 weeks, what were the players doing? Playing in Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 league, posting on social media, taking beach vacations. Breanna Stewart was winning an unrivaled championship. They had 6 weeks to work on a legitimate counteroffer, and they didn't use that time productively. Then, when the league finally agreed to meet in person on February 2nd, the owners showed up ready to negotiate. And the players? They had no new counterproposal ready. The league isn't dragging this out. The players are unprepared.
Know that there's a discomfort in what we are doing. Well, Terry Carmichael Jackson, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's go over here real quick, shall we? Let's reread what we just wrote. In an interview with Front Office Sports at Union headquarters in New York, Jackson addressed Plum and Stewart's letter. "I think you're hearing that there is a discomfort with what's being played out," Jackson said. When asked about the letter, "I don't know that there's discomfort with what we're doing," but then we compare that to the letter that Plum and Stewart put out. Wrote a 3-page letter Monday to Players Union Executive Director Terry Jackson expressing serious concerns about how...
Here's where Jackson's advice to the players becomes genuinely concerning. She told them, "The one thing I said to the players is they have one tool, and their tool is to outweigh you. Outweigh the owners. That's the strategy. Not out-negotiate them. Not build a stronger case. Not find creative solutions. Just wait them out. But think about what that advice reveals." It shows Jackson doesn't understand who she's negotiating against. These are billionaires. People who built massive companies through patience, strategy, and a willingness to walk away from bad deals. You think they're going to get anxious and cave because negotiations take a few extra months. These owners have been through corporate negotiations that make CBA talks look like a neighborhood lemonade stand dispute. Breanna Stewart earns the highest salary in WNBA history at around $250,000 per year from her team contract. The average NBA owner is worth multiple billions. The financial pressure isn't symmetrical here. The owners can wait forever. The players need their paychecks, and Jackson's telling them their biggest weapon is patience. That's malpractice.
Speaks about the questions that we just saw. I think the questions were just fine. Indiana Fever guard Sylvie Cunningham tells Front Office Sports they were trying to allow people to fully understand what it means. If you say yes, this is what it means. If you say no, this is what it means. So I personally was okay with how the questions were asked. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let's get into some reaction, shall we? Again, the more you hear from the Players Association, from the player side, the disdain just continues to grow. LOL, so much dumb in all this, but she might want to mention that they can outweigh them, or they can simply carry on or replace them. 90% of the league are free agents. Just carry on and don't sign them ever.
Now we get to the strike threat, and this is where the entire situation becomes almost tragic, because you can see the players haven't thought through what a strike actually means. Breanna Stewart gave an interview after her unrivaled championship, saying, "Strike is definitely on the table because we're negotiating for the best deal possible. That leverage isn't going away. Do we want to do it? No, we don't. But if we have to, we will." That sounds strong. That sounds unified. But watch her body language in that clip. She doesn't look confident. She looks like someone reciting talking points she's been given. And the reason is simple. The players don't actually want to strike. They know what happened the last time a women's professional league had labor issues. The ABL folded. Teams disappeared. Careers ended. The WNBA lost money for 27 straight years before finally turning a small profit recently. This league isn't the NBA. It can't survive a prolonged work stoppage. The owners know this. The players know this. And most importantly, Terry Carmichael Jackson should know this. But instead of negotiating from a position of realistic assessment, she's encouraging strike talk as a pressure tactic. It's a bluff, and everyone at the table knows it's a bluff.
No wonder this has been a mess. Players need better advisors leading them. This is Breanna Stewart giving an interview about this. CC Report says, "It's giving hostage video," which honestly is exactly what it is. This is what it looks like when the PA is trying to frantically recoup the little credibility it ever had with the strike threat, and in order to even have a prayer at that, it was necessary for Stewie specifically to come out and try to undo the damage they've done. Unfortunately, like any hostage video, the problem is that the party making the hostage video, in this case the PR, are not rational actors, which is a prerequisite to any negotiation. The league will not negotiate with terrorists. Damn. Let's take a listen.
Strike is definitely on the table because, we're negotiating for the best deal possible. And as everybody knows, we have.
Sophie Cunningham defended the survey, saying the questions were fine and designed to help players fully understand what accepting or rejecting the offer means. Elizabeth Williams said players who feel anxious can initiate calls or meetings anytime they want. Both of them are trying to project unity and confidence, but their defenses actually reveal the opposite. If players need to initiate their own calls to understand what's happening, that means the union leadership isn't proactively communicating. If the survey questions need defending, that means they weren't clear enough in the first place. These aren't signs of strong leadership. These are signs of damage control. And here's what nobody's saying publicly, but everyone's thinking. The players who are defending Jackson most vocally are the ones in leadership positions. They're protecting their own reputations, because if Jackson goes down, questions start getting asked about why the executive committee didn't intervene sooner. Why didn't Breanna Stewart and Kelsey Plum raise these concerns in December instead of March? Why did it take a looming deadline for them to finally put their frustrations in writing? The dysfunction goes deeper than just the executive director.
Social media support was going to make the owners fold. Yeah, I'm so confused with Stewie's on at this point. Yeah, I think Stewie's confused. I don't think Stewie knows what Stewie's on at this point. I think she has nary a clue. Let's listen to what Charles Barkley had to say about this real quick, and then I'll let you guys get out of here. Appreciate you guys for all supporting and hanging out during these longer videos. Let's take a look.
Yeah, they need to be very careful. They're walking on thin ice right now, Susie. Number one, I wish those ladies luck. I want them to get paid as much as possible. I wish them nothing but the best. But let me tell you something. I had Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. I've had some of the greatest players ever, and we went on strike. Listen, you got to be careful trying to figure out I know they're doing some great things, but you can't overplay your hand. Like I say, I want those ladies to make as much money as possible. And I don't want to be one of those fools get on TV and say, I don't know their financial workings. I don't know how all their stuff working. But I will tell you this, as a league that had Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and
Charles Barkley's perspective cuts through all the noise. He's been through multiple NBA strikes. He's negotiated against billionaire owners. He's seen what happens when players overestimate their leverage, and his message to WNBA players is brutally simple. Be very careful about overplaying your hand. Barkley mentions having Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson on his side during NBA negotiations. And they still went on strike 3 times, the greatest players in basketball history at the peak of the sport's popularity. And they still couldn't just dictate terms to the owners. They had to strike, they had to miss paychecks, they had to sit at home while the season didn't happen, and the WNBA thinks they have more leverage than that? With lower ratings, smaller revenue, and a league that just started making profit, the math doesn't work. Here's what the players don't seem to understand. The owners aren't negotiating out of desperation. They're negotiating from strength. The WNBA just signed a massive new media deal worth $2.2 billion over 11 years. That's real money, but it's not NBA money. It's not even close. The NBA's current media deal is worth $24 billion over 9 years. The scale is completely different. The WNBA players are asking for 50% of revenue sharing, which sounds reasonable until you look at the actual numbers. The league is projected to bring in around $280 million in revenue for the 2025 season. 50% of that is $140 million, split among 144 players. That's less than $1 million per player on average. And that's before you account for the league's operational costs, which are substantial. The owners are offering what they can afford to offer while keeping the league financially stable. The players are demanding what they think they deserve based on principle rather than math. And Terry Carmichael Jackson is encouraging them to hold firm and outweigh billionaires who have nothing but time. This is how unions destroy themselves, not through owner greed, but through their own incompetence. Think about what's happened here. The players had momentum coming into these negotiations. They had public support. They had a new media deal bringing in real money. They had Caitlin Clark driving unprecedented attention to the league. Everything was aligned for them to negotiate a strong deal that improved conditions while keeping the league financially healthy. Instead, they've spent months sending the same rejected proposal twice, waiting 6 weeks without progress, surveying their members with confusing questions, and watching their own leadership fracture into competing factions. Agents are writing letters. Vice presidents are expressing serious concerns. Players are leaking frustrations to the media. And through it all, Terry Carmichael Jackson keeps saying everything's fine. The league is the problem. The owners are stalling. Just wait them out. That's not leadership. That's denial. Here's what happens next. Either the players accept something close to what's already on the table, or they strike and watch public support evaporate completely, because fans don't have unlimited patience for labor disputes in a league they're just starting to pay attention to. Caitlin Clark brought millions of new viewers to the WNBA. Those viewers don't have decades of loyalty built up. They'll just stop watching if there's no season. And when that happens, when the ratings drop and the sponsors get nervous, and the next media deal negotiation rolls around with less leverage than before, the players will look back at March 2025 and realize they had their chance. They had the momentum. They had the attention. They had the opportunity to secure a genuinely good deal, but they were led by someone who told them to outweigh billionaires instead of out-negotiating them. Someone who blamed the league for her own failures. Someone who couldn't keep her own vice presidents from writing letters expressing serious concerns about her leadership. The WNBA players deserve better representation than this. They deserve a union leader who understands negotiation strategy, who communicates clearly, who builds consensus instead of watching it crumble. They deserve someone who can look at the actual financial realities of the league and craft proposals that work within those constraints, while still improving player conditions. Instead, they got Terry Carmichael Jackson. And that might be the biggest obstacle to getting a fair deal. So, where does your support lie in all this? Are you backing the players despite their leadership? Are you siding with the owners who are trying to keep a historically unprofitable league financially stable? Or are you like that voice at the beginning of this video, just exhausted by the whole situation and ready to watch Caitlin Clark play basketball regardless of which league she's in, because that's where a lot of fans have landed? Not pro-owner, not pro-player, just tired of the dysfunction and ready to move on. And if the WNBA Players Association doesn't figure out their internal problems soon, they're going to find out that fan apathy is more dangerous than any negotiating tactic the owners could ever deploy. Let me know what you think in the comments.